Hey guys, what's up? I'm here again working on this 2009 Saturn Outlook. This weekend I did the front struts and coil assembly. This is kind of part of the whole front suspension job I've been doing on this. Last weekend I did new tie rods, control arms, and ball joints on both sides. And I have videos up on those, two-part video, so feel free to go check them out if you're looking to redo front suspension on this car. I didn't think I'd be back a week later doing more on this, but here we are. This all started because lately, over the past several weeks ago, I've been noticing a lot of banging and clanging and clunking sound going on when I've been driving, and especially hitting potholes and bumps. Very loud metal on metal kind of bumping around. And it was getting worse day after day. Did a quick search underneath the car, and at first saw that my tie rods and my ball joints were just torn apart and they needed to be fixed. So I got that all done. Scheduled an appointment with my mechanic to get a front end alignment done. And he said, looks like you got everything in good. You did a nice job, solved most of the issues, but there was still some little bit of thumping going on. And here the issue was my passenger side strut and spring assembly was getting very worn down. Now again, on this car, 2009, so 11 years old, about 160,000 miles. So the fact that none of this has gotten replaced in 160,000 miles is good, but that also means that it was well overdue. So he said, I'm not going to do the front end alignment because you're going to just need one again anyways if you replace the struts and springs. He goes, so why don't we just skip? He goes, I'd recommend you just do these yourself because it looks like you know what you're doing. These are a fairly easy job to do. So get those in. Bring it back and I'll do the front end alignment then. So that's what I did. Ordered the parts, got them in yesterday. So now I'm going to show you what I had to do. Again, like my other videos, this is not a complete step-by-step tear down and bolt back together. As I mentioned, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not a video editor. So I did not want to film a 2 or 3 hour long video. So I'm just going to go over where everything's at and what you need to do the job, similar to how I did all my other videos. So before we get into where everything's at and what you need, I have a little Sunday Fun Day trivia for you. If I asked you, in order to do this job, you need to take off the windshield wipers, the blades, would you say that's a true or false statement? Once again, yes, I will repeat that in case you did not hear me right the first time. If I said in order to do this job, you need to take off your windshield wiper blades, would you believe me? Would you say that's a true or false statement? Yes, the answer is true. Your blades must come off. Why? Why would you need to take off windshield wiper blades to do front suspension? Makes no sense. I'll tell you why. Because you need to get them off in order to get this off, in order to get down into there, to get to the 3 nuts and bolts that hold the strut assembly up inside under the engine compartment. Why it was designed that way, I don't know. We could go down that road like I have in my other videos, how, yes, another GM quality product, but it is what it is. So, other than the nuisance of that, this was a very easy job to do, in my opinion. I would say, once you get your blades off and get this plastic piece up and out of the way, I would say maybe hour and a half per side, so allow yourself maybe 3 hours or so to do the job. But anyways, let's start up here because here's where your work's going to start. Your 2 wiper blades. Go onto this bolt, and that bolt. Those are 15 millimeters holding those on. So you need to get them off and get the blades off. The blades were a little tricky. They were kind of stuck on there. I heard that they make a blade removal tool. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have one. But what I had to do with mine, because they were kind of stuck, is I went in my car and turned my blades on for a couple minutes and let them go back and forth. And that loosened them up enough to grab them, pop them off. Once you get those two off, you then have these 4 plastic retaining clips. 1, 2, 3, 4. They come off. You can just get a flathead screwdriver to pop them off. There's a ground terminal here, ground lug. That has to come off. That is also a 15 millimeter. Once you get that off, this plastic piece has a little tab that clicks down in here to the side of the card. You got to pop that out. And then underneath this, see that little white clip? There's a bunch of them under there. All you got to do is just, with a little force, pop. They all come off. This thing lifts up and off. Bend that out of the way. And then we can toss that to the side. And once you get it removed, there's your strut assembly where it fastens up top here with your 3 nuts and bolts. Those 3 are also 15 millimeters. I would recommend a deep socket for this and probably an extension on your ratchet handle. That's fairly deep inside there. So 15 millimeters for that, 15 millimeters for the ground screw, and 15 millimeters for your wiper blade. So that'll cover all this. Once you get that off, then you got, what I did first is I loosened those 3 nuts up top, where this bolts in up there. I took 2 of the 3 off and left the 3rd one on there just to hold it in place. And then you have these 2 big guys. Let's see if I can get over here. These 2 big bolts. These were, other than the wiper blades, these were the biggest pain in the butt of the whole job because they were so rusted and seized on. The top bolt came out fairly easily. I had to hammer both of them out. This bottom one just took forever. It was just stuck on. But the bolt head on these 2 have to come out. The bolt head is a 21 millimeter. The 2 nuts are 24 millimeter. It's not too often that you see different sizes on the same nut and bolt, but 24 millimeter for the nut, 21 millimeter for the bolt head. So make sure you have both. Maybe a socket on one end, open end wrench on the other, vice versa, whatever you have. These were actually so stuck on for me that I actually did not need to hold a wrench on this end. I was just able to break them free with the breaker bar, and they came off with no problem. Then once I did, got them free, I spun the nut back on so that the nut was flush with the end of the bolt, and then took a large hammer to knock them out, because you don't want to, if you have to reuse these bolts, you don't want to hammer the end of the bolt here because you could damage the threads. So my new struts did not come with new bolts, so I had to reuse my old ones, but no big deal. So those 2 come out. The other thing you need to do is this cable goes down to, I believe that's some type of speed sensor. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong. It looks into the, I believe the wheel hub and monitors acceleration maybe. Again, someone correct me on that if I'm wrong. So this cable comes up. It snaps. It has a clip that snaps into the side of the strut here. That just, good hard pull, that comes out. Then it attaches here with this clip. This clip just wiggles, comes loose. Then you can get that out of the way. And then the last thing you need to do is take off this sway bar or stabilizer bar link. Attaches down to the stabilizer bar there, and then it attaches again up here to the strut. Now, if you're doing the strut and you're keeping your rod, you only need to disconnect it at this end, not both. The new struts and coil spring assemblies I got actually came with new bars. So I replaced the bar with them. Now everything's new. So in that case, you have to loosen them at both ends and take them off. Once you get that off, you get these two bolts out, and you have loosened and taken them out. This just pops right out. New one slides right back up in place. The nice thing about these is the top of them, up there, where the 3 bolts are that go up into the engine compartment, that top piece is kind of like going on a bearing system, so you can't really turn it by hand. But if you get this up in place and get those nuts started and kind of get them snug up, you can grab this assembly down here. Let's see if I can, this is bolted on so I can't do it. You can grab this and actually, it will pivot left and right for you. And that will help for when you need to align it up to the knuckle here and get these bolts through. Also, one other thing I did when I installed the new ones is I came underneath here with my floor jack and jacked this whole assembly up right underneath the ball joint and the control arm and put some pressure on this to raise this up a little bit and kind of keep it steady in place, because otherwise, once you loosen those 2 bolts and take them out and take the strut assembly out, this whole knuckle and rotor and wheel hub assembly is just going to flop around. So to keep that from flopping around and getting damaged, I use my floor jack to prop it up. Like I said, just to keep it kind of steady and in place. And then once I got the new strut in and fed the bolts through, I was good to go, and it held it back in place, and then I could lower the jack and move it out of the way. So let's go over and show you the tools and everything you will need. There's the old strut and spring assemblies, the old stabilizer bar links or sway bar links. I don't know what the proper name for them is. Out and good. The new parts I got from 1A Auto. Kind of simple. If you watch my video on the control arms and ball joints, some of those parts I also got from 1A Auto. Great parts, exact to the manufacturer's spec. Free shipping, fast delivery. I got my parts in about 3 days, which is good if you consider the fact that we're in still in the coronavirus phase, where if you've noticed, anything you order online takes a little bit longer than normal. So to get stuff in 3 days, free shipping is pretty good. I personally recommend it, but that's just my opinion. You are free to order the parts from wherever you want. The new kit I got, again, was 1 for each side and 1 for each side. The new kit was about $260. So probably cheaper than you'd get at a Advance Autos Parts or Pep Boys or any of that. So, tools you need. You will need a breaker bar, especially on those 2 bolts that hold the strut to the knuckle. To break them free of that rust and get them started, you're going to need some force. So this came in handy often. 1/2-inch torque wrench. You're going to need that for those 2 big bolts. Probably will also need that for the nuts to put your tire back on. 3/8-inch driver torque. And then some shallow sockets, deep sockets, and open-end wrenches. We have 24 millimeter, 21 millimeter, and 18 millimeter. You do need all 3, just in case. There's some 15 millimeter shallow socket, deep socket, some extensions and a handle. The 15 millimeter again is what you're going to need to take off the wiper blades, that ground lug, and the 3 nuts and bolts that hold the strut up into the engine compartment. And there's the extensions I said you're going to need to get down into it. There's a hammer you're going to need to probably pound them bolts out. Adjustable, some thread locker just in case, flat blade screwdriver, and an 8 millimeter socket. This comes in handy in one specific spot, and I'll show you where that's at. The screwdriver was to get those, here's those plastic retaining clips that you got to pop out for them. There's that ground screw you got to get off. So, and again, if you have this manual, this old Haynes manual, very handy. Again, there's your makes, models, and years. Chapter 10's on suspension. And at the beginning of the chapter, they got these torques, these torque settings. So for the struts, upper mounting nuts, that's the 3 that go up in the engine compartment, and strut to steering knuckle bolts and nuts, 33 and 144 torque pounds. That's why I recommend the 2 different size torque wrenches if you have them. So, here's why we need this little 8 millimeter. Here's the old sway bars. The end of that screw is a hex head. So the problem is, if I just get my wrench on here and try to break this free, it's going to spin this whole bolt with it. So what you need to do is you got to get your socket or wrench on there and use that little 8 millimeter to hold the end of this screw steady and in place while you break this free. The new ones I got actually do not have that. The new ones are just a straight bar, or I'm sorry, straight bolt, straight thread. But what I had to do on the new ones is the new ones, this is the old one, but on the new ones there's a nut right here as well. So on the new ones I had to get an adjustable, hold that nut into place while I came up here and tighten this down. These are also 18 millimeter, or this is where you're going to need your 18 millimeter. I would recommend an open end wrench because it's hard to get a socket in there. You might have enough room for a shallow socket, but you definitely no room for a deep socket. So I would recommend 18 millimeter open end for that. Otherwise, the new parts were exact fit for fit. Same exact bolt holes and everything lined up perfectly. Again, about $260 for the new kit. It was a 4-piece kit. And yeah, I would say allow yourself about an hour, hour and a half per side. So again, this was not intended to be a total rip apart and put back together. There we go. So any questions, comments you have, let me know. If you know any tips or tricks that can help other people watching this, please let them know. And if there's anything I missed or said something wrong or misquoted something, feel free to correct me. Not only does it help me, but it helps other people that are watching as well. Very easy job to do. Other than some muscle strength that you need for these 2 stupid bolts, very easy job. You can easily do this one yourself. Like I said, feel free to also check out my video I did last weekend on the new tie rods and the new control arms and ball joints for these same models. Again, Outlooks, Acadias, Traverses, and Buick Enclaves. Any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching, guys. Hope this helps.